All right, today we're going to be talking about home inspections, and we have one of our favorite home inspectors with us today. I should say he is our favorite inspector, just to make him feel welcome.
Yeah, I think I'm here's why you're saying that.
Brian Kirkham with Utah Property Inspectors. This is a guy that we've known for a long time, and so he has a real depth of experience in the industry. And I'm excited to unpack some things about home inspections with Brian today. I think it's going to be a really worthwhile episode. And also wanted to, as we get into this, bring your attention to a previous episode that we did about buyer due diligence. And this fits in nicely with that episode. But we're going to focus completely on home inspections today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience, how you got into the home inspection industry.
Yeah, I've actually been doing inspections now for 16 years. I've done pretty close to 14,000 inspections. So I've seen quite a few things.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, I wonder how that relates to other inspectors. 14,000 inspectors. I mean, I think if you ask some of these inspectors, they probably wouldn't know, but I don't think it'd be anywhere near that.
And some of that is commercial.
Yeah.
So it's not just residential, it is commercial as well.
Good. So tell us about your background then.
Yeah, I grew up in Camas, building homes. And the company that I was with, we did it was all in-house. So we built the homes from the ground up. We did the footings, the foundation, the framing, right to the finish work. So, and then I got my own general contractor's license. Built some homes in Park City, Tooele County, and American Forks, matter of fact.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I actually was in the electrical union for 5.5 years.
Yeah, I know you had a lot of really deep experience in the electrical world, so that's awesome.
I guess it's worth contrasting a little bit with other home inspectors that we have here in the Valley who probably have never even built a home. And I don't mean to make light of that. I just realized that to get a home inspection license here in Utah, one could do what? Hang out a shingle and print some business cards?
I actually print some business cards and start doing home inspections. And that's kind of basically, we'll get into that a little later. But when you're hiring a home inspector, a background is a big question to me as a home buyer.
Well, I think let's lead into that subject then. I mean, what does it take to become a home inspector in Utah?
Well, when I first got into home inspections, I actually bought a national franchise company.
Oh, okay.
And so when I bought my franchise company, even though Utah was not on the list of licensed states where you had to get a license through the state, our national company, when we bought our franchise, they trained us. We went to 3 weeks of training, and then we also had to take the national test. And some of these other national societies that kind of sponsor and kind of educate home inspectors, ASHI, NAHI, and NACHI are 3 are biggest.
Yeah.
That's basically they give a national test.
Yeah. But in Utah, from what I understand, there's no licensing for a home inspector, and so there's no regulatory board like we have the Division of Real Estate.
No.
You don't fall under any of those requirements.
We don't.
You guys are out there running wild.
We are running amok.
Well, and that's part of the problem, though, is there are a lot of people that are out there, as Justin alluded to, that are calling themselves home inspectors, and I'm not sure how qualified or competent they are.
Well, it seems like you do three things here, right? You could say, okay, I want to be a home inspector today and print some business cards.
Yeah.
Or 2, you could say, I want to be a home inspector, but I'm going to go get some continuing education and all the online resources and take courses and all that stuff.
And your good ones do.
Yeah, and the third would be somebody says, I'm going to be a home inspector, I'm going to set up a real business, I'm going to do all that online resources and training, etc. And then you put that with an actual background in construction.
Yes.
That seems like what would make a more powerful home inspector.
Yeah, and really and truly, the people, and bear in mind, I'm not, downplaying anybody, but, somebody that has just got out of the business from selling insurance and goes into the home inspection business, the state should mandate a little bit. Yeah. And they should, apprentice underneath somebody that does have the experience in the background to kind of help these guys down the road if they are they going to stay in the business too.
Yeah. Well, and I've actually come across people who are retired and they want a little side hustle.
Yeah.
And they may have, they've been homeowners, or maybe they've had a couple of rental properties or something like that, and all of a sudden they're sort of qualified to be a home inspector. And I really am concerned about that. So.
Well, before the downturn, the first downturn we had, we were inundated, just like you guys as real estate agents, and let's face it. I mean, even with the state having, state guidelines and you guys having so much education, I mean, there's bad real estate agents out there,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Same thing with home inspectors. And the way I view it, they don't stay around too long. Yeah. They miss something big. They miss something big in a real estate transaction. And, you as a real estate agent and the buyer are mad at them. And they don't hang around very long. No. I mean, they find a way to get weeded out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Well, at least the question would be, do you have insurance? Does a home inspector have insurance? But
Mm-hmm.
nobody was requiring you to have insurance, right?
No, you don't have to. And that's one other question, as a home buyer asking these questions. What's your background? You carry E&O insurance, just in case you do miss something,
Right.
because we're all human, and
Sorry to cut you off on that thought, but you'd mentioned that some national organizations, some trade associations, and things like that. I think those would be important for a home inspector to belong to.
They do, and that's one thing that they do kind of give you ongoing education, and for me, like even a guy that's got some experience, they kind of keep us updated on some of the newer products that are out there that are being installed in the homes, instead of me showing up and going, I have no clue what you got going on here.
That is true.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, it's pretty obvious, but why should a buyer have a home inspection? And let me back up and state that a lot of buyers come to us and they say, I want to offer on this home, but I want to make sure that I have a chance to get a home inspection. The real estate purchase contract gives you a due diligence deadline. It's anywhere from 10 to 14 days, and that's plenty of time for you to call a home inspector. Typically, Brian, if I were to call you on a Monday, you'd have an opening by somewhere Thursday, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning, somewhere in that range.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So there's plenty of time. 10 days is plenty of time to do your due diligence. And of course, we always remind our buyers it's more than just hiring a home inspector. I mean, we got to look at neighborhoods and schools and crime statistics and all those different things. But Brian's going to help you with a whole lot of stuff here that you're worried about. And of course, when they go through this home inspection, they're going to be so worried because you do such a good job. But why do buyers want to have a home inspection?
Well, basically, when you as the real estate agent go out, you guys look at this house, you like it, you put an offer in it, and the offer, you're thinking everything in that house is good.
Well, we're attracted to the nice furnishings and the paint colors and the countertops.
But really, that's a lot of what people are looking at. They're not thinking about the things.
Well, they don't, and you're not looking at water damage that you should have noticed. If you're really looking, they're excited about the house, or they forget to look at the roof might be ready to be replaced. So there's little things that we're not emotionally attached to that we go in. We provide, kind of the condition of the property.
You're the buzzkill, Brian.
No, actually, the condition of the property is the buzz.
That's true.
There's a distinction there.
But I like what he said. I mean, buying a home is very emotional, and buyers are approaching that with so much in their head that's clouding maybe some of the logical steps of evaluating a property. In comes a home inspector like Brian, and he, brings that all down to a logical, factual level, and looking at things in a way that can help them make the right decision.
Right. And like the other thing that really kind of, is a home buyer, one other question I would ask is, can I see a copy of your inspection? Because sometimes, this is like studying for, an essay. Yeah.
That is a very good point. Because we have had home inspections come back where somebody else chose a different home inspector. And I'm telling you, it's in triplicate. And it's just a bunch of check marks. Check this, check that, check that. Your inspection is so much more complete than that. And maybe we ought to get into that a little bit more. But I'll tell you, and I think we are going to in the show notes here, but when we have to go back and go to bat for you, boy, do we need an amazing inspection. So I think it's a good question. And so if a buyer called you and set up an appointment and they said, hey, I'd love to see a sample inspection of yours, you'd send it to them?
It's on the website.
It's on the website?
You can actually
I
look at
love
stuff
that.
on the website.
We're talking about, in case you didn't catch it, we're talking about the report that Brian produces after the inspection that you can then review all of the findings from the home inspection. And we have seen so many different formats of those reports. Some of them are just horrible. Others are so informational. The information is easy to access. Brian does a great job, even has video and things like that on his reports to help explain and describe the situation that he might be coming up against.
Yeah, we love that. So give us an idea what a home inspection looks like. Where are you in this house? What are you doing?
Well, we check everything. We check from, walking around the place looking at fences to, one of the biggest things that we find in a lot of houses is the grading. A grading around the house is very crucial because especially if we have a livable space below, negative grade causes water penetration.
Yeah.
You know.
You're willing to get up on those roofs?
Yeah, still today. Actually, heights don't scare me. I actually like the
Oh
heights.
man, I can't imagine, because sometimes we have a big 2-story and it might have a walkout basement, and you look down that thing, it scares the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Attics?
Get up in the attics.
Even in the middle of the summer, are you getting up in the attic?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, what's the temperature reading on some of those?
About 116, 118. Look at them.
Yeah,
Well, but like crawl spaces are nasty places a lot
Disgusting.
of times. But you guys are down
Yeah.
on your back,
Yeah.
shimmying through the crawl space
The
to look
nasty.
at stuff.
Looking through the nasty.
Yeah. Now, tell us more though about your home inspection, about what you're looking at.
You know, basically, we go in. We actually look. You know, from the siding to the roof to the flashing. We find a lot of flashing problems as well. But we check out. You know, the siding. We check out inside mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We use infrared cameras in our inspections as well when we run plumbing, because it's a camera that can X-ray the walls and ceilings, and we can see plumbing leaks, roof leaks, water penetration that could be concealed in a wall or ceiling that you can't see with just a walkthrough inspection. So we've got stuff that we can actually kind of cheat and see things that some inspectors can't.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see Brian do a home inspection, because, you know, if the seller left a bunch of dirty dishes, he'll load them in the dishwasher, and then you do run a load of dishes, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
I'm just kidding. I know you do turn on the dishwasher though,
We do
and you
all
heat
kinds.
every element of the stove. And another thing that Brian likes to do, and it doesn't surprise me when I walk in, and he's actually in the jetted tub.
With my bathing suit. With my bathing suit.
Taking a bath to make sure the jets work. And, I mean, you're filling up tubs, watching them drain. It's really a very boring thing to watch, and that's obviously why we have the buyers. And maybe you tell me, you know, we tell the buyers, you don't have to be there for the full 3 hours. If you want to, Brian's not going to kick you out. But it's really boring stuff, because you're multitasking a lot of stuff here. We want you to show up for the last half an hour. Brian's going to give you the recap.
Yeah, and that's basically, and to be honest with you, I mean, when I'm there by myself and I don't have somebody upstairs asking me a question when I'm downstairs, they're going to get more of a detailed report.
Yeah.
And then we take the time at the end to go through it, you know, and go through our findings and explain things. Because a lot of things that we do see, Jared and Justin, is, you know, basically in every house. You know, we're you know, it really and truly, I mean, a home inspection is based off of bigger ticket items that, you know, nobody was aware of.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's true. Even though your report will detail a lot of little nitpicky things.
the door's not latching. And,
Yeah.
You know, I call it the blah blah blah.
But what we really care about are roofs,
Yeah.
furnaces,
Electrical.
air conditioner, you know, these big ticket items, electrical,
Yeah.
plumbing. I love that you have the infrared gun. That's a
Yeah.
powerful tool that you need to have.
Well, actually, a story on that is a number of years ago that you did an inspection for us on a home that we invested in, and you shot that infrared gun on one of the ceilings under the bathroom that was upstairs, and you saw some indication of some water, and you know, we were able to, you know, we wanted to know. You obviously want to know about that kind of thing, but. Yeah. Most inspectors without that specialized tool and that knowledge would not have caught that, and then you and I could have had a flood later, and that saved us a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Geez, thanks, Brian.
And really and truly, I mean, basically what those infrared cameras do is they eliminate the finger pointing. You know, the seller knew, you know, they didn't disclose, and, you know, it just eliminates a lot of, and the real estate transactions go a lot better for everybody involved. Buyer's agent, seller, everybody's happier. Because a lot of times we catch that stuff when it's minor, and there's minor, repairs to that instead of major.
Here's a question for you that we get a lot.
Okay.
A lot of buyers say, hey, this is a fairly new condo, and do you think I should have a home inspection? I mean, you know, condos don't have, you know, they're not responsible for the roofs or the exterior or anything like that, so you're really just going in there and doing, you know, a shorter inspection. Mm-hmm. What do you think about condos, and maybe even townhomes too?
Even houses, even brand new houses. I mean, honestly, a lot of times, I'll give you. I've got one story in my head I remember. Today, it was a high-end home in Pleasant Grove before the downturn, and this lady calls me up. She's from back east, and she goes, you know, it's a brand new house, never been lived in. You know, why would you have a home inspection? She asked me this question, and I said, well, you know, sometimes they haven't been lived in, first off, and a lot of the bugs haven't been worked out. Mm-hmm. And she didn't book an inspection. She called me back 2 days later and said, I just want to do it. And the shower pan in the master, they had punctured the membrane behind that tile wall, mm-hmm. and it was leaking down through the office, sealing the walls, you know, and she was so thankful we catch stuff like that. Where she would have moved in, had already closed on the house, and now the builder is going to get over there when he has time.
Yeah. So new construction, you're a believer.
I
mean, obviously, because you're in the business here.
A lot of times, like I'm saying, the kinks haven't been worked out. People haven't lived in
That
it.
is true. When I built my house in 2008, it was like a year of discovering things.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
So it's not that. In fact, I'd almost rather have a home that's a couple of years old where the kinks have been worked out.
Yeah.
The builder has come back and he's
Yeah.
fixed a few of those things, and it's inevitable. But you charge less on a condo than you would on a single-family home.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So even though it's an investment, it's a smaller investment. So if you have a condo and you want to get inspected, it's completely up to a buyer to do that.
Exactly.
You'll do it.
Yep.
That's very nice of you.
Now, you've got a lot of competitors out there. There's a lot of people in the home inspection business,
Sure.
but one of your biggest competitors is Uncle Bob, who is the buyer's uncle, who's been a contractor for 30 years. And they really trust Uncle Bob. And so we've had buyers bring him to the house and do a home inspection and not hire a professional. I've seen that not go well. So, tell us a little bit about why they would not want to go with Uncle Bob, but spend the money on a home inspection, a professional home inspection.
Well, there's two things that I can see that would cause problems. The first thing is like when I first got into home inspections, I thought I knew it all. And it's not that they don't know what's going on, but their eye is not fine-tuned into the things that
That's
really
a key.
happen.
I think that's a real key.
That's the real key. And then the second thing is let's say I'm the real estate agent, I'm you guys. Negotiations when Uncle Bob is telling everybody what's going down, that kind of breaks down the negotiations instead of a third-party opinion going, Uncle Bob says that, it's not Uncle Bob, it's Brian with Utah Property Inspectors says there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I think as a seller, if I was selling the house, I kind of put myself in both positions. It would be easier to give money back or make the repairs when it's a third party versus Uncle Bob saying.
I think those are both extremely good points.
I think also if Uncle Bob misses something and it's a big deal for you, then Thanksgiving dinner is going to taste a little differently. when
Uncle Bob might not be at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Uncle Bob might not be. But we also have buyer sign. You'll be signing this buyer broker agreement, which allows us to represent you as a buyer, that says you're going to exercise care and diligence in evaluating the property, and that if you decide to do your own inspections or you have a family member come do the inspections, you're going to hold us harmless because we're really worried about you and Uncle Bob pulling up in your truck and putting a ladder up to the roof, and you're climbing around the roof and somebody falls off. Suddenly, this is a big deal. So transferring that liability over to Brian, who's a professional and has that experience, is probably better for your own safety.
Well,
everybody involved.
I think the point that you made about having a trained eye is super valid. Again, these contractors may know a lot of stuff, but when I've seen them come in, and they're just almost a casual thing where they're just looking at things and they're knocking on walls and stomping on the floor, and it's just so much different than you, who has a checklist, a way of going through the home to make sure you're thorough and complete. Yeah. It's just a totally different analysis of that home than your uncle could do. So I just don't recommend. And then Brian made the second valid point. When we're going to negotiate some things, Brian is a much more authoritative voice than your uncle. And a lot of agents that we might be dealing with who are listing the property, who are representing the seller, they might know who Brian is because they may use him as an inspector as well. And so it helps us to negotiate a lot better when we find some things that are wrong with the house.
Yeah. Now, you've talked about specialized tools. You have the infrared guns. And also on a home inspection, there's a general home inspection, but then people can also add on a few additional tests. What are some of the things that somebody could add on?
Well, we actually do the radon testing. We actually use some nuclear machines. We leave them in the house. It's a machine we leave in the house for 48 hours, and then we have immediate results.
Yeah.
With an inspection, it's $125. If they just want us to come out just for the radon, it's $150.
Yeah. Okay, because you have to leave that, and then you have to come back and pick that up at some later time.
Yeah.
What are some crazy readings you've seen on radon?
98.5.
98.5.
Wow.
And the legal limit is 4.0 and above. It's measured in picocuries.
Yeah.
98.5 was in Park City.
That's like smoking a,
I'm telling you what,
10
I
packs
think
a day
if you
kind of
turned off
thing.
the lights, you'd be glowing.
Sounds like a party to me.
But you know what's so funny is I tested it one time and I'm like, this cannot be right. I mean, my machine just must have messed up. So I took it, I set one again, and it came back within a few decimals of each other. And then I actually ended up setting 3 machines side by side, and they were all within 1 decimal of
wow,
each
that
other.
is way high. I think I've seen some things in the teens, but that is...
I've actually had a lot of 30s and 40s too
Really?
before, but 98 was the I like that.
So you got radon. What else can somebody add on?
You can do meth testing, and that is becoming more and more popular. People are becoming more and more aware of meth.
Talk a little bit about the process of testing for meth.
So meth, what we usually do is typically I'll test in the kitchen in case it was manufactured. I do test in all air filtration systems. So I'll test inside the furnace as well as the cold air returns, and then maybe a bathroom exhaust fan. And just so you know, this year alone, I've actually in Saratoga Springs, that's as far as we'll go, we tested 2 brand new homes that have never been lived in with meth.
You're kidding.
And the contractor called me screaming at me, I mean, which he was just wound up because of the situation.
Yeah.
But it ended up being, once they kind of narrowed things down, it was the sheetrockers hanging the sheetrock that were smoking meth.
My
inside the
God.
house.
That is really crazy.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of meth testing with Brian and especially on bank-owned properties that we've. So it kind of depends on. I mean, you shouldn't make the assumption, but sometimes if shady people are living there, you got to test. But sometimes if you can talk to the neighbors and that person's, the grandma's been living there for 30 years, maybe you don't test for it. But I don't know.
And that's what I always said. Just go talk to your neighbors. They're the biggest. They'll tell you everything.
If you're going through an inspection, O'Brien, and somebody did not add the meth test, but you can kind of see.
If you found paraphernalia or something
certainly
like that.
I have.
I'm sure
I've
you
found
have.
needles before.
Yeah.
Have you? But if you can see maybe some indications where they were, you'd probably call
Absolutely.
the buyer and say, "Listen, add the
absolutely.
meth test.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor."
Well, and I do, and you know what? Sometimes I'm kind of honest to a fault. Sometimes because some clients will automatically. There's another test we do is air quality mold testing, and they'll automatically add it.
Yeah.
And just like I tell them, look, don't add that because it's really expensive. Let us do our first analysis of the home. Let's do the inspection, because food source for mold to grow is moisture, leaks, water penetration, and it has to be contained in an exterior wall or in the ceiling that's going to contain insulation, which could retain the moisture for mold to grow.
Yeah.
So before we add all this up, let us use our infrared cameras. Let us do the inspection, and if we see moisture in a ceiling or wall, we're going to recommend you get a mold test done anyway, just to protect everybody involved.
Yeah.
How do termites work? You're looking for evidence of termites all the time, but you're not necessarily a termite inspector.
Yeah. So what we do is we look for any type of signs, tubulars, or any damage to sheetrock, baseboard, trim, and then from there, I mean, basically we'll refer that to having a licensed pest professional come in and give you.
So if it's a VA loan, your inspection, you can't generate an inspection for
we
a VA loan.
We can actually give you a certification for it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, but when there's damage and stuff done, we recommend that a company come in because we don't eradicate them.
Right,
We don't
no.
spray or anything like
Yeah,
that. So
but that's nice to know that you can do a VA certification.
yeah,
Okay.
we can.
Other things that you're probably coming across though are like cockroaches and maybe hives and things like that.
We catch them in the attic all the time. Yes,
interesting.
From gaps in the fascia, soffit, or one of the eaves.
Well, I think that's really important. One other one would be lead and asbestos. Again, lead testing is so rare. People, if you buy a home pre-1978, we're going to put a lead-based paint disclosure in front of you, and you're going to sign or you're going to do a test or not. Yeah. And I always remind people that most of us grew up in homes pre-1978, and we're okay. And so I've done hundreds of FHA and VA and conventional deals on homes pre-1978. Nobody's forcing you to do a lead-based paint test. I've never had buyers actually do a lead-based paint test.
Yeah, and basically lead base. I mean, you have to digest it. You have to eat it for it to affect you.
Well, kids, that's the fear. Kids will put anything in their mouth.
Right, and so when we're inspecting the house, if the walls haven't been refinished and painted, and we do have cracking and flaking paint, I do talk about it being a concern. But I mean, if the house has been remodeled and repainted and stuff, I mean, it's not as big a concern.
Encapsulated.
It is. Yeah.
But there is the popcorn ceiling, and a lot of that is
Asbestos.
is asbestos containing as well, and
Yes.
and then there's the asbestos tape
Yeah.
around furnace ducts and things like that. You're pointing that out
In the flooring, yeah, there
in
is
a lot of the flooring
in
tiles
shingles,
used to use.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty much everywhere. Insulation, it's got the loose fill insulation.
Yeah.
So basically, where I'm a little bit concerned with the insulation being asbestos is if these guys have got great renovation
Yeah.
plans and they're going to come in and knock walls out. That's when it's concerning, because now
Yeah.
we've opened up the Pandora box.
There's not necessarily an age for asbestos. Like, they've declared 1978 is the lead-based paint, but for asbestos, generally speaking, when did they stop using asbestos?
78.
Oh,
Well,
really?
they did
It
in
was
78
78.
as well.
Yeah, it was 78.
78 was a big year.
And I've
huh?
actually seen it go up into like 79. Now, I don't know if that was like, the house being, a year older than what it said on the MLS, but typically 78 is the cutoff for
Okay.
asbestos.
That was a big year.
Lead base is 76 is what they were saying. So,
Okay.
Okay, well, those are good things that again, if you're going to do any kind of remodeling, you'd want to know about those and
yes, because it needs to be taken out.
Yeah.
And anytime it goes airborne, that's the thing with asbestos. Same thing with your tile ceilings or your floors. If your buyers are unaware of a tile floor that's going to contain asbestos, they come in there and start hitting it with a shovel and breaking it up, then it's a problem.
And if the floor is nice and level, pick out a nice pad and just carpet over
Just
it.
carpet over it. Yeah, just don't even get rid of it. But it's nice to let those buyers know that please don't touch this.
Yeah.
It's good the way it is. Recarpet over the top of it, and you're good to go.
Yeah, good. Okay, so you do this full-blown inspection. We have this beautiful report now at our disposal. And let me back up and say that not all homes, there's no such thing as a perfect home. You just said that even brand new homes sometimes have flaws, right?
Absolutely.
So sometimes buyers, they want to go right back to the seller and try to get them to come down on their price or fix things and all that. And some sellers in the markets that we've had over the last decade, they just said, sorry, next.
Yeah.
And so in some rare cases, that is. I mean, even to go under contract with this seller, we may have had multiple offers. So even though we have a great report and there's definitely some legitimate issues, I always try to let buyers know that they may not do anything.
Right.
They may send you packing. And a buyer has that option through the due diligence deadline. They can have that contingency to remove themselves from the contract. But if we've got a really great report and we've got a seller that's wanting to help out, and by the way, sometimes you bring up issues that sellers had no idea that was in their homes.
oh, absolutely, all the time.
And some sellers take the approach where, gosh, I guess I really need to get this fixed. It's the right thing to do. I don't want to leave a buyer with some of these problems. So if we've got a really great report, which we may have paid you somewhere between $375 and $500, depending on the square footage of the home, the age of the home, location, all those things, we can go to bat for you, Jared, and I can. And so talk about return on investment. Jared, tell us what you think about that and some of your experiences on taking a home inspection report and going back to the sellers.
Yeah, sure. Again, you are now armed with information, and his report's got videos and pictures, and we can use that really strategically to reopen negotiations with the seller. And so that might include having the seller fix some things, lowering the price, maybe including some concessions like additional closing costs paid for by the seller on behalf of the buyer. And a lot of things come to mind. Roofs, I've been able to negotiate $8,000 concessions for a new roof. Water heaters replaced, windows replaced. I mean, the list is very wide and varied. But if you spend $450, you get an $8,000 concession. That's one heck of a good return.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I've had the same experiences over many, many years. The state really wants us to go after a price reduction, or they would like us to go after concessions. So in other words, if you structure the deal where you're not asking the seller to pay any of your closing costs, now you might go back to the seller and ask them to pay some of your closing costs. So that frees up some money that you would have paid for closing costs to fix some of these issues.
Right.
The problem with asking the sellers, and again, this is where the states really come down on us, to fix A, B, C, and D. You got this laundry list, a honey-do list of things. A, the sellers don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But really, you don't know who fixed it. If they brought in licensed people, if it was done correct, what happens in 30 days when that issue resurfaces or the work that was done fails? You can see how many problems that's created over many years. And so the state said, please go after a financial concession. It's a lot cleaner for everybody.
Yeah,
So-
that's a really good point to bring in. But again, the point is, it's an awesome return on investment. I don't have any problem spending money on a home inspection. Now, sometimes we've had a home inspection done, and like you said, the seller wasn't willing to do anything. But there's still value in that. I mean, you now have peace of mind, and you're going into this transaction, into closing this transaction with eyes wide open, and not finding things out.
Marching orders for the next,
people-
10 Saturdays in a row.
Yeah,
This is what I
people
got to do.
use the inspection sometimes to make the repairs after they move.
Right.
in.
And
If
you know
the
what?
seller's unwilling.
We've also had people come back, and this is hard, but it comes once in a while, where the inspection really came back very, very well. And they think, well, that was kind of a waste of money. Was it? Was it a waste of money to pay
Not at all.
$400 to know that the home was in amazing shape and condition? That just seems like a really great peace of mind.
Yeah. It's
None
like
of that.
going to your doctor and having blood work done and getting a physical exam.
You're disappointed that you're
The
healthy.
doctor says, yeah, you're healthy, actually. Crud, what did I even come in here for?
Yeah, no, that's funny. Okay, give us some funny stories. You tell funny. Brian, it's hard for Brian to sit in front of a microphone and not use any cuss words. I'm just kidding. He doesn't have it.
Probably one of my funniest ones was, well, there's a couple of them, but one of my funniest ones was in Highland. And I go down in the basement, I can smell moist air.
Yeah.
Like, I know that there is water in this basement. And I'm like, I'm using my infrared camera, I'm looking at every wall, I'm using my handheld moisture meter, and I'm not finding this moist smell. And I've got my head shoved up in this wood-burning fireplace, and I look up, and I open up the damper, and I look up, and this raccoon is looking at me right in the face. And I hit my head on top of the thing. I thought I'd knocked myself out. And that raccoon was hissing, and oh my gosh, that was a bad one there. That was a little scary.
That is.
But that was
funny.
the moist smell was the raccoon.
Just living in the home. Yeah. Yeah, really sweet setup.
Just hanging out in the chimney, down by the fireplace.
Well, speaking of little critters, man, don't you find critters all the time? I'm scared to death of bats, for example.
I've had bats. They don't scare me as bad as snakes.
You've had snakes.
Few snakes, but no major encounters. Nothing. And we don't have. But no, nothing.
Even spiders scare me.
I don't care about spiders.
Yeah, I mean, you're walking through some
You're
crawl
so brave.
spaces, and there's probably you come out with cobwebs
I have
all
stuff
over you.
hanging
And,
all over me.
yeah. I mean, and again, these are things that Uncle Bob's not doing. He's not going through the crawl space
what
to
about
check that out.
paranormal activity?
And he goes,
Brian?
One time in Lehigh.
Really?
Yeah. One time in Lehigh, I was in this old house, and I could actually tell you who the real estate agent was. We won't name names, but I'm sitting there, and they're supposed to be coming, and all of a sudden, I just barely got there and was down in the basement looking at this mechanical place, and it was kind of leery because I could actually hear somebody walking across the floor upstairs. And I'm like, hello, I'm down here, and nobody comes, and I walk upstairs and looking around, I'm like, no, nobody's there. And I go back down. It happens like 2 or 3 times, and then I'm just like, okay, this is a little weird.
Yeah.
But I could actually hear somebody walking across that upstairs at the main floor when I was down in the basement.
well,
Did you note that in the
So
report?
usually, when I usually walk in, I usually go face forward, and that one I was facing the door. Yeah.
yeah.
Didn't want to.
Well, I've walked into a lot of properties that the hair sort of stands up on the back of the neck. I mean, homes that have been vacant for years. I mean, we used to do in and out a lot of bank-owned properties. And it can be a little scary, at times.
For sure.
Well, there's always the potential for somebody to be squatting in a property, though, like that, too. That's kind of a scary encounter to have.
We did a sixplex down in Salt Lake. I don't think there was a window in this place. It was before the downturn. And there was 2 rooms I couldn't inspect because homeless people were sleeping in them.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Were you very quiet?
Yeah, I'm just like, I open up the door and I'm like,
Don't want to wake them up.
No.
well, as you go through all these homes of different ages, I mean, what's the oldest home you think you've inspected?
In the 1800s.
Yeah, we've sold a home. I think we sold a home a year and a half ago. It was 1888 or something like that. It was down in Salem. Really nice home.
Yeah.
But what are just some absolute deal breakers? Like Jared and I have a huge threshold. I mean, there's not that would scare us away.
Yeah, we've cleaned up meth properties.
We've done all this stuff.
I think everything is fixable. I mean,
fixable.
Basically, I mean, as if I was putting myself in the buyer situation, you know, I'm in love with a house, but you know, something that would deter me from selling the house when I go to sell it would be kind of a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that is actually opens up quite a discussion because we do find, for example, foundation problems, which can be remedied with helical piers and the like.
Yeah.
When you go to sell that property, the disclosures will ask you, did you have any problems? And then you're going to have to tell them the whole story and all this stuff, and you put helical piers, which, are you a believer in helical piers?
Absolutely.
I think I'd rather have a home that has helical piers than one that doesn't.
We've had a lot up in Cedar Hills.
Yeah, all along the Wasatch Front.
And I've inspected them, and I'm telling you, that's a good system. No, I've actually had good.
But you do have to disclose that. You'll have to disclose.
You got to get a buyer comfortable with those things because those are problems.
It's the cost, but then it's like you're saying, it is having to disclose that at some point in time. But we're jaded, right?
So let me ask you that question while we're on that subject. As a real estate agent, you bring a buyer in. They disclose that they've had some helical piers. What percentage of people are turned off by that?
I'm not sure if I've got enough data on that, but I've come across it a number of times. I would say some would probably be turned off on it, and I would point them to really investigate what those systems are. In fact, if I were building on the bench along the Wasatch Front, I would use helical piers in the construction process. Yeah. You know, we've seen homes on the Provo bench sell for $5,000. We're talking like homes that could have sold for $450,000 because it's just a complete scrap.
Mile High Drive in Provo.
I remember that one. Yeah. That was something else. So we've had some of those things. So, you know, helical piers, if people have the information, I guess we just need to arm them with information.
Yeah, they need to get the facts.
They're a great system. And I think, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that warranty is transferable to the next buyer. But what about after that? Does it keep transferring?
I think it's like a 40 year. Some of them are a certain number of years after the work's been done too. Yeah, I mean, we sold a house last year where out in the street, the Springville water had been leaking over a period of years. Seller didn't know about that. Well, they're a little bit slightly lower than the grade of the street. They started noticing problems in their home. The back side of the home, actually, the foundation sort of cracked, and then it sort of leaned. And, I mean, they did. Springville City finally came out and saw, we do have a leak here. It's been going on for a number of years, I think. And anyway, Springville City kind of helped them, but there was a big fight, and they ended up fixing that foundation and putting about $75,000 into it. Yeah. And that foundation was super. I mean, they had engineers sign off on it and everything. Really, really stabilized it. Did a great job. Did it the right way. But still, as we showed that and we listed that, there were a lot of people that still, just in their mind, that's a stigmatized property. And so there were a lot of people who did pass up on that home because it had the foundation problems.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all three of us are pretty jaded because we have a huge threshold. And my point to a lot of buyers, if financially, if it makes sense, if we can get an accommodation from the seller on a major issue that comes up, go through the transaction. There wouldn't be really anything that would scare us away.
Yeah, but we have a little bit more cash resources than some buyers do. And so how do you pay then for some of these upgrades that the home may need? If it needs to be totally rewired, I mean, that's a lot of money, where some of our home buyers may not have that money.
Right. So if it makes financially sense, seller's giving you an accommodation, you can tackle this as the new homeowner, then do it. But the nice thing is you do have an opportunity to walk away from the deal if you need to, and we always support our clients if they feel like, if they've got the information, good information, we'll always support them to walk away from a deal if they need to.
So what do you like about being a home inspector, Ryan? I think it's a really important, he's a really important person in a real estate transaction, but what do you like about being a home inspector?
for me, the reason why I got into this, because I was in the electrical field for a while, and I was traveling so much, and I was never home. So for me, being home and seeing my kids was probably my biggest reward of doing this. Doing home inspections. But it's nice because we do build relationships with agents. We build relationships with clients, and it's good. It's like anything. I mean, when you see kids that are buying their first house and are just excited and they're actually getting a good house, it puts a good feeling in your heart.
Yeah, you're a big part of that.
Yeah,
helping them feel comfortable with it and making the decision to move forward. And sometimes we've had Brian come and inspect a home, as we've talked about, and there's been so many problems that our clients have backed out. And we hate to lose a deal, but as Justin said, we support our clients in making those kinds of decisions when they have the facts, they have a nice inspection report from Brian. But I think that what you're doing is such a great service to help people navigate the real estate transaction and make a good informed decision.
Yeah. And I think, like anything, I mean, I think it's with the times. The pendulum swings both ways. When the downturn is, I mean, you could roll up to a house and go, you know what, just not liking that color.
Yeah.
And then repaint your house. And now to where it's more of a seller's market. Sometimes you're handcuffed on some of the repairs you do ask for. So it does swing back both, both directions.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Well, I think this has been a really valuable conversation. And we really appreciate you taking the time to come in. How can people reach you?
You can reach me at, you can Google me. My website is upiutah.com, or on my direct cell at 801-694-2692. You can actually schedule online on my website. So,
okay. Well, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Jared? It's a great topic.
I think it's a great topic, and use a professional home inspector. Use a professional. That's, I think, the point of today. Don't try to take shortcuts. Even as many homes as Justin and I have bought, and it's a lot of homes at this point where we've bought personally. We don't buy things without doing a home inspection on them. I mean, we need to make sure that we know what we're getting into.
Right.
And so, as trained as we are, and we've both been through thousands of homes and many, many transactions over the years, we still are not a good substitute for a home inspector.
Yeah. Well, I will say that as real estate professionals, we will typically refer you to 3 different home inspectors, and you get to call them and kind of look at fees and schedule and what they do and reports and all that stuff. Brian seems to come out with a lot of these home inspections.
Yeah.
So that's to your credit, buddy.
Yeah.
But we'll always refer 3. But Brian's willing to earn your business. He'll do what it takes to earn your business, which has been awesome.
Well, thanks for coming in, Brian, today.
Yeah,
I hope it was fun for you, and again, I hope it's a great podcast for our listeners. And if you've got any questions, anything specific, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks.
Thank you.